Well, welcome everybody to the Aspen Chapel. I think our music's going to go down a bit, the chanting, and I'd like to welcome particularly one of our member of our community here, Lexi Potamkin, and Lexi and her foundation every year. What a treat to bring the monks to Aspen here, and some of you will probably have seen them at the art museum building their mandala, and it's fantastic that they've been doing that. And it's such a treat for us to be able to have you all here with us to share some of your deep spirituality and your culture with us. And we're extremely grateful. So a bit of a welcome for the monks, everybody, and Geshe. Yes. So yeah, Lexi has been bringing them for how many years now has it been?
This is the 10th year.
This is the 10th year.
This is actually the 10th year they've been here, but they've been in my life 25 years. So I'm the one who's extremely blessed.
Yeah. Absolutely fantastic. I'm going to hear from Lexi today. She's going to be speaking. I'm just going to go through a few things that are happening. Do you want to start with what the monks are going to be doing today and the next couple of days?
Yes, of course. Today, after the service, we have a wonderful Tibetan food reception outside with the monks. And then they are still building, of course, the mandala. And today is the closing ceremony. And that is at 3 o'clock at the Art Museum. And Geshe Lobsang Tenzin, who's with us today, my dear friend.
Geshe,
Yes, yes,
as well.
yes.
Do you want to stand up, Geshe?
Yes. Dr. Nagy.
Yeah.
And he'll be talking about the symbolism of the mandala at the Art Museum, and that's from 1:30 to 2:30. So you could go to that and then stay for the closing ceremony, which follows at 3 o'clock. So today's a very special day. And then, of course, the monks will be here at the chapel Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
No, just Monday, Tuesday. And
well, Wednesday night, yeah.
So Monday, tomorrow, they're here from 8:15 to 9:15 doing a meditation. We do have a meditation every Monday. They're going to lead that. And then after that, Lexi is going to be doing a presentation on the enlightened gene. And what's that basically about, Lexi?
Well, it's a new book, and Dr. Nagy and you are going to talk about it. I think you each have copies of it.
Yeah.
And it's really talking about the science behind genetics and enlightening our own genes. So it's a very interesting topic, very cutting edge in science.
And that's 9:30 to 10:30. And then on Tuesday, they're going to be doing the Lama Chopra ceremony, which is again 8:15 to 9:15 here.
And that's magical. Lots of chanting and ceremony and just beautiful. We've done it once before here, and I know everyone very much enjoyed that.
And then on Wednesday evening, we have our traditional Insights program, which is from 6 to 7 o'clock on Wednesday, and the monks are going to be here for that. So do feel free to do that. If we could put a few more chairs out of the back, Willie, for people who are arriving, that would be great. That'd be fantastic. Good. So that's all monk news. And I just want to point you to our service sheet, to what's going to be going on this week here at the chapel. You can see that just inside, on the back page of the service sheet, we've got the cantata rehearsal, men's group. The Ayurvedic Wisdom Workshop is happening here on Tuesday. Yoga and meditation on Wednesday. Aspen noise as well on Tuesday or other. Yoga and meditation, Vipassana. All our normal sorts of things that are going to be happening. And then down the bottom, you can see, if I can borrow your service sheet,
of course.
Down the bottom, you can see the things that are coming up. We've got an ecstatic dance workshop on the 24th, Tuesday. And then a full moon breathwork and binaural beats on Wednesday here. So do feel free to come along to that. That starts at 8 o'clock till 9:15 on Wednesday. We've done it before, hugely successful. So do feel free to come along to that. Now also, if you look in your service sheet, you'll see that Robert Kennedy is coming. Robert Kennedy is, the real thing. He's a Zen master. He's also a Catholic priest. He's a member of Society of Jesus, and yet he is trained as a Roshi and as a Zen master. And he's going to be coming along and talking about the gift of self-mastery on August the 11th from 10 till 4. So do feel free to come to that. There are leaflets at the back for that. And just to, add spice to it all, we have the High Priestess of Bali coming on July the 29th. That's a Sunday. That's this coming Sunday, a week today, 5 till 7 o'clock. And she's been doing a transformational meditation and blessing. So read about that and do come along to that if you want to. On your chairs, you'll see we have got we're having, along with lots of other people, we're having our gala on the 6th of August, Monday the 6th of August at 6 o'clock. And we do encourage you to come along to that gala. You know, as a supporter of the chapel, it'd be great if you were able to take a table or even just a chair. Bettina's here, and where are you, Bettina? Do you want to say a few words about the gala and what? Bettina's coordinating our gala for us.
Well, I'm coordinating the volunteers. I'm not the lead person. Yeah, your ticket is on your seat. Please climb on board the peace train. It's going to be a great, great gala. We have a lot of fun items for the silent auction and the live auction, and you can start bidding right now because it's online. So we encourage you to do that as well. I'm actually here to make a pitch for bodies. We need a few more people who are willing to pitch in day of to do a couple of tasks at the gala, and we would very much appreciate your help. I do need to add the caveat that doesn't equal a free ticket on board because we're trying to raise money. So buy your ticket and come help. It'll make you feel really good at the end of the day. Thank you.
Bettina, thank you. Yeah, that's great. Have I forgotten anything? No. So just to sort of start what we're doing here, it's always, I think, just good to center ourselves. Just to remember why we're here. And we're here to open our hearts to each other and to open our hearts to that divine spirit, that spark that's within us and within all of us. We're here to be touched by that eternal wisdom, to be opened up. And I just pray that over this next hour we may, some of us, be able just to move forward a bit in our spiritual lives, that through hearing the deep chanting of the monks and the deep message that brings, hearing Lexi's words, the meditation, all of us may open ourselves to be changed in some way. And so I just invite you now just to open your hearts as we hear the opening chanting from the monks. just going to invite our children those who'd like to leave, to go with Heather and McKenna at the back, and they're going to be organising things downstairs for you. If you'd like to do that, you'd be most welcome. Just say if anybody wants to use meditation cushions, I put 6 out at the front. No need to use them, but they're here if you want to. If children want to stay, they can, or feel free to go. Just think it's a good idea for the rest of us. Always think just to take a bit of an inventory of our lives as we start this service, just to maybe with our eyes closed. Just think about what preoccupations maybe have been going on with us this week. Worries, concerns about the fires, firefighters, people involved. Just acknowledge worries that each of us might have about our lives, our health, our families, our friends. Situations we feel caught up in. Difficulties we might be having. And having acknowledged them, let's just for a moment let them go. And drop down into our hearts, into that place where we connect with the divine, into our breath, into our place of being. And open that place to each other. Put our attention there, where we receive the Spirit. That we may exist in this place during the meditations, during the chanting. Rather than being in our heads, we open our hearts and simply be in the present, connecting with love. O love divine, to whom all hearts are open, all desires known, and from whom no secrets are hidden, come and cleanse the thoughts of our hearts by the inspiration of your Holy Spirit, that we may perfectly love you and worthily magnify your holy name. And just to bring us deeper for a few minutes, I'm going to invite Lexi just to lead us in a very short meditation.
So now we'll just take a moment of silence for 1 minute as we close our eyes and become comfortable in our chair and just relax your body. And for a moment now, focus on your breath. As you breathe in and out, silently saying, I'm letting go. I'm letting go of thoughts. I'm letting go of any tension I may be holding in my body. And I'm moving deep into my heart in silence. And now gently open your eyes and bring your awareness back here, knowing that silence is our ultimate healer. And Nicholas now has a reading.
This is an extract from a book by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and it's the book, The Compassionate Life. My religion is kindness. From the moment of birth, every human being wants happiness and freedom and wants to avoid suffering. In this, we are all the same. And the more we care for the happiness of others, the greater our own sense of each other becomes. Many of our problems are created by ourselves, based on divisions due to ideology, religion, race, resources, economic status, and other factors. The time has come to think on a deeper, more human level and appreciate and respect our sameness as human beings. And to have a respect for endangered cultures that share these principles. We are at the dawn of an age in which many people feel that extreme political concepts should cease to dominate human affairs. We should use this opportunity to replace them with universal human and spiritual values and ensure that these values become the fiber of the global community that is emerging. It is not possible to find peace with anger, hatred, jealousy, or greed. At every level of society, familial, tribal, national, and international, the key to a happier and more peaceful and successful world is the growth of compassion. We do not necessarily need to become religious, nor even believe in an ideology. We need only to develop our good human qualities and know that love and compassion are the most essential concepts for human survival. So long as human beings live and suffer, the only world open to our present knowledge, the brotherhood of man, will seem an unattainable principle. In order for us to achieve real, lasting peace among one another, the effort to realize that noblest and most satisfactory moral value must be the occupation of every individual intelligence.
Thank you, Nicholas. Good morning, everyone. My husband was raised Jewish and I was raised Methodist. And our kids have been raised Christian, Buddhist, and Jewish. And when I'm asked, what is my religion? Well, I often say a word that I made up, I'm inclusiastic. And people say, what does that mean? And I say, I include everybody. I grew up traveling because my father was an engineer, and we moved almost every year of my life. I was born in Idaho, but lived in Oregon, Washington, California, Michigan, Florida, Belgium, and Italy. And then I moved to New York at age 20. Change is not scary to me. I learned early on to embrace and accept different cultures and lifestyles, and I was exposed to people of many different backgrounds. And I feel very fortunate for these experiences because they define who I really am today. It may seem that when I say inclusiastic, it means that I am tolerant of other religions. But to be tolerant just means to tolerate. To merely tolerate something is to put up with it or to endure its existence. But to me, inclusiastic means that I am not tolerant of other religions. I celebrate them. I embrace them. At the basis of all religions, there are undeniable similarities. There is a philosophy of spirituality that views each of the world's religious traditions as sharing a single metaphysical truth or origin. And this is called perennial philosophy. The British writer Aldous Huxley wrote a book about it, and it's called The Perennial Philosophy, and he wrote that in 1945, which is a comparative study of mysticism. In this book, he presents the highest common factor of all theologies in an attempt to show that they are essentially the same at the core. It is a human nature to try to find similarities or things in common in order to better understand something outside our own scope of knowledge. Perennial philosophy does not claim that all religions or spiritual traditions are the same, but rather that the human search for truth is perennial. Many religiously tolerant people invoke the perennial wisdom philosophy as a reason for their tolerance. When doing so, they interpret the perennial philosophy as a way to connect different and opposing philosophies to one underlying idea of faith. Or they see it as a philosophy that claims that there is a single common religious principle behind all the world's religions. However, the idea that religions are essentially the same is not the crux of perennial philosophy. It is not meant to be used as a way of comparing or combining religions. Perennial philosophy does not claim that all religions or spiritual traditions are the same. Rather, that the human search for truth is perennial and is a common human condition of different people of diverse beliefs and in diverse circumstances. The basis of perennial philosophy is the common search for truth, which is not restricted to only one religion or to religion at all. For example, the search for truth is also embodied in science. We seek truth through the scientific method. We propose a hypothesis and attempt to prove or disprove it through systematic observation, measurement, and experimentation. Then our conclusions must be verified by others using the same methods. The last step is especially important because we know that humans have biases that can make them see things the way they want to see them, based on their own preconceived notions or experience. In order to reach a truthful conclusion, we have to seek further verification from others. I don't think there's an instance in the history of science when all scientists agreed. As such, the search for scientific truth is an ongoing search. Science never rests, and our scope of knowledge continues to be refined and improved. Pick any subject in science, astronomy, chemistry, physics, biology, or any of the others, and we will find that what we believe today varies considerably from what we believed 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago. We come ever closer to the ultimate truth, but we never quite reach it. Truth itself evolves based on our understanding of the world around us. This is true of science and even more true when it comes to philosophy. There is far more disagreement in philosophy than in science because of its intangible nature. There may be a dozen theories of gravity, but there are hundreds of philosophies of ethics or religion. So what is the purpose of searching for a truth that is so hard to prove? In science, the answer is that it provides us with technology and the end result which we see, and we use it every time we pick up our phones, every time we use our computer. I have minimal scientific understanding of electricity, but I flick a switch on and I no longer live in the dark. Scientists may never agree on the tenets of classical physics or the laws of quantum mechanics, but we put people on the moon and we watch it on television. What does a pursuit of truth in philosophy provide us with? It isn't something that we can necessarily see, hold, or touch, but it provides us with a map. It is a spiritual compass, a tool for navigating life. Philosophy, and religion is included in this, points us to the higher meanings and purposes of life. It makes us consider the nature of our world and ourselves, the nature of our consciousness and the relationships we have with nature and each other. It attempts to provide us with a coherent viewpoint from which to see the significance of our lives and of all of life. It links us to the past, the present, and the future. So there are many reasons to refer to the perennial philosophy and how things change over time as our knowledge evolves. Because of the internet and other technological marvels, we are exposed to cultures in a way that would astonish our ancestors. Not long ago, people rarely traveled far from their home or hometown. Now we find ourselves in a global economy and a connected world, so we have access to people and ideas that were not available to us before. In the past, people were very leery of strangers. Our ancient caveman ancestors traveled in bands of less than 100 people, hunting for food and gathering edible plants. They had to roam over very large areas to sustain even such a small amount of people. Therefore, it was somewhat natural to see strangers as competition for the small amount of available food and resources. In today's global market, where for many food and resources are abundant, we don't have the same issues. So it makes sense that in the current world situation, where we are exposed to diverse peoples and diverse beliefs, we are interdependent and need to get along with others. This is a learning process. If we are going to teach a difficult subject, we start off with what people already know and build from there. We introduce one small, different, and unknown fact at a time until finally a person knows something that they knew nothing about before. We start with the known and we move into the unknown. Therefore, it makes sense that our first inclination is to look for similarities. That's why we are drawn to believe all religions and all peoples are essentially the same and worthy of the same respect and equality. And this is certainly not a bad idea, especially as a starting point. But this is one side of the coin and a valuable piece of currency. But for me, I am fascinated by the other side of the coin, the differences. I don't use a perennial philosophy as part of the reason that I call myself inclusiastic, even though the search for truth is something we all have in common. Our similarities are only a very small part of the reason this term makes sense to me. I came to the idea about being inclusiastic by something which I learned from my father and mother, something called a sense of life. This is not something attained through the study of any philosophy or social science. It is the basic innate understanding of essential virtues and ideas and how they are expressed uniquely by every individual in how we live our lives. This was not taught to me in words, but picked up simply from the example my father and mother showed me by how they lived their lives. While I acknowledge and rejoice in the things we share, I am most fascinated and excited by our differences. Yes, we are the same in many ways, especially in our intrinsic value and the fact that we all deserve to pursue happiness in the way we feel we can best attain that goal. But every human being is still undeniably unique, regardless of the things we share, and that is fascinating to me. Human beings are not only different from one another, they are different from all other animals. Most animals are born with certain instincts. Nobody has to tell a robin to live in the trees or how to build a nest. And nobody has to tell any animal in the wild what they should eat. But for humans, these are learned behaviors. We don't all live in the same kind of structures. We don't all eat the same food. And we don't all believe the same things. Nothing is given to us automatically. We have to think and decide what is best for us as individuals. Because the idea of only focusing on the things we have in common can seem like a call for conformity, I firmly believe we have to rejoice in our uniqueness as well. Our differences, simply because they are different, do not make us better or worse than the next person. Our different and unique qualities do not inherently make us superior or inferior, but should be celebrated. I find it interesting that, for instance, Elizabeth Taylor has violet eyes. How different. For me, the differences among us are the most interesting and beautiful aspects of being human. But we are at our cores the same. Don't we all wish to be happy and free of suffering? How can we rationalize wanting that for ourselves and not want that for others? Most Asian philosophies are founded on the basic premise that we are all connected and interdependent. Buddhism is not alone in believing that selfishness leads us to an ugly and dysfunctional world. Even though no one overtly sets out to be selfish, we still live within the confines of ourselves, our families, our social circles, and sometimes we shut out the needs or suffering of those outside. Even if we cannot see someone else's suffering firsthand, we can still wish for them to be free of suffering, just as we wish for ourselves. Equanimity means treating all people the same way with impartiality. The monks demonstrate this every day in receiving people of all backgrounds and temperaments in the same way. They are free of judgment and impatience and self-importance. When confronted with a difficult person, they receive them in the same way they would a friendly one. Equanimity is our daily routine, and it's their daily routine. The essence of equanimity is impartiality, which enables the meaningful practice of loving kindness and compassion and empathetic joy. When we practice equanimity, we are wishing for all sentient beings to be free of the causes of suffering and unhappiness, knowing that it is not possible unless we are all freed from the afflictions of the mind. When I was a child in school, I was taught that America was a great nation, a melting pot, because it was comprised of peoples of all nationalities from all over the world. Our country welcomes others. The Lady Liberty, a beacon for all newcomers, holds a plaque beginning with these words: "Bring me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free." I recognize at once that America was great specifically because we celebrate and accept the power of our differences. We have an infinite pool of talent from all over the world to draw from. That was and still is our greatest strength as a nation. You may remember I told the story of the pencil, which showed that it takes hundreds of people from all over the world with different nationalities, religions, politics, and beliefs to make a pencil that you can buy anywhere for a few cents. This is only one example of how diversity is a keystone for providing the components for a rich, full, and rewarding life. Every person has a story, literally. Every person knows something that you do not know, and that will make our lives richer. There are over 130 million books in the world right now crammed with information containing different opinions, perspectives, and philosophies. No one person can hold all this knowledge. Therefore, those holding different scopes of knowledge from ourselves can impart the most knowledge to us. So I don't just tolerate different religions and ideas being and inclusiastic, I try to celebrate them. Because every religion, every idea, anything different than I ever learn about or come in contact with adds infinitely to my life. Only by going outside our immediate circle of knowledge and comfort zones can we broaden them. I absolutely am captivated by the diversity of life on Earth, which obviously does not stop with only humans. There are more than 1.5 million species that we know of on Earth, and many waiting to be discovered. And there are around 500,000 species of plants alone. And even beyond living things, there are an infinite number of places and things to see that will enrich our lives and that of our children, friends, and family. In this current environment where divisiveness can be found in our media, politics, and global affairs, it is especially important to approach other people with different opinions with equanimity. There is nothing to fear but fear itself. When we embrace people and circumstances outside our comfort zones, we grow and evolve as a person. The recent royal wedding was a great example of diversity and inclusivity. It shows us that no matter how set in our ways or traditions, we can choose to be open, to learn and include others. Joy and pain are created by us, but with a just like me attitude, we can train our hearts and minds to be inclusive, realizing that everyone wants to be happy, healthy, and free from suffering. Because of the value that other people, other religions, and other ideas add to my life, I very enthusiastically want to incorporate and celebrate as much diversity as possible. That is why I call myself an Inclusiastic. And with open hearts and open minds, we can all be Inclusiastics, trusting that divine love and spirit will give us strength and support to open our hearts, our minds, to diversity and inclusivity.
So let's pray. And in prayer, we open our hearts to that great being, that divine self that's within us. We open our hearts collectively, and we ask that we may be appropriate in our response to the things that we're concerned about. We particularly think of our world at the moment. We open our hearts to be appropriate to create a more inclusive world, a world where love is at the center of things, a world where leaders wish the best for each other, a world where nations support each other. And we ask that we may be appropriate to that end result. And pray for all those who are in difficulty, particularly thinking of the families of the people affected in the duck boat disaster. People suffering from earthquake, from volcanoes, from natural disasters all around the world. We ask that we're appropriate to the situations of war zones that exist, people living in fear of their lives. Pray for all those in prison, in difficulty. Pray for all those in hospital. And coming closer to home, we pray for our valley. We particularly think of all those affected by the fires. We pray and ask to be appropriate in our response to that. We pray for the firefighters, for the pilots, for all those trying to save homes and lives. And pray for those who've been evacuated, who are finding difficulty breathing with the smoke. Pray for those who've lost their homes as well. Pray for all those visiting our valley at this time for the holidays, for the music festival, all those working around all the festivals and events going on. Pray for safety and joy. And finally, we do think of those who are close to home, who've been in difficulty, particularly think of Patricia Hill, think of Father Joseph Boyle, and particularly the family of Barbara Orcutt, David Floria's sister, who died recently. We open our hearts to your divine spirit and ask you to enable us to be appropriate to all these situations. Amen. Well, we're just going to come to that moment in our lives where we bring ourselves back to earth and realize that we need to keep the lights on here. And we need to be able to offer the monks and people like that. And the only way we can do that is through your generosity. So I'm building up to the offertory, asking you to open your hearts and wallets to the plate that is going to appear in front of you. If you're watching online, welcome. I'd love to have you with us. There's a donate button just to the right of your screen. Please do feel free to click on that and be adventurous as you look at that. So we're going to hear some chanting from the monks while the plate's coming around, just to encourage you in your movement of capital. And so let's hear from the monks, and please feel free to give generously. Thank you.
I was just thinking in practical terms, what does it really mean to be inclusiastic? And I think it's simple things we do. Maybe smile at a stranger, or maybe go talk to somebody that you've never met before, and you'd be surprised what you would learn. And my son went on a teen tour from the high school this summer, and I remember talking to him. I said, you're going to Berlin, you're going to Paris, you're going to Spain. I said, it's going to be different cultures. You're leaving with 17 children you don't know from the high school. Open your hearts and mind. You're going to learn something from everybody. You're going to learn something from these cultures. And he came back and he says, I have new friends. I didn't even know these kids from my school. So I think in practical terms, it's just looking at ourselves of how we can maybe go beyond our comfort zones. Last year I was in England, and there were many Muslim women wearing full burqas with the eyes, and I had to step out of my comfort zone because I don't know a lot about that culture, but I thought it's a human being underneath that. Okay, I'm gonna smile. I don't know if that's right, if she's not gonna like me because I'm a Western woman, I'm like struggling with it. And I just smiled, you know, and I don't know if she smiled back because I could only see her eyes, but I saw a human being behind that burqa with those eyes showing, and I smiled, and that's all we can do is reach out, I think, with our hearts to differences. Even if we don't understand them, it's a human being. Thank you. Go in peace with open hearts and minds to embrace diversity, love, and compassion.